again, everybody. Great to have you along for yet another edition of Conversations of Connection. We're talking about mental wellness in sports and life. I'm Scott Murray, along with...
Hi, and I'm Dr. Nina Rios-Doria. Welcome to the show today.
And I tell you what, we're most excited because we're going to be talking about a little football in the National Football League, but maybe even more importantly, we're going to be talking about mental wellness and an incredible family. 5 kiddos, but boy, did they do some incredible things, some very special things in our world that really make a difference in our young people, and that's what it's all about. I'm talking about Tommi and Troy Vincent. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. How are you?
Wonderful. How you doing?
Well, we're doing fine. Troy, of course, was a former great with the Philadelphia Eagles, but now, more importantly, Executive VP of Football Operations and Football really in the National Football League. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Most guys retire and they're gone, but this guy's stuck around. What do you do? Let's talk about that first of all, Troy. What is your, when you talk about Executive VP of Football Operations of the National Football League, what does that mean?
So by title, I'm the Chief Football Officer, anything football. So anything that deals with officiating, rules, the education to the players, coaches, anything game related on say Sunday, Mondays, and Thursday nights, the growth of the game at the youth level, high school level, collegiate level, the development of coaches, the development of the athlete, the future of football, where is it going? So all of those things I have an opportunity to engage with some wonderful people, some colleagues here at the National Football League. Player operations is a primary focus. That is past, present, and future players. That is assisting the player. Use the term assist, both on and off the field, for what the experiences that he or she may have in their journey in life, and that is his or her experience in sports and how that transitions over to, as we would say, your new normal.
Well, gosh, you ought to be the commissioner, for Pete's sake. You're a busy guy.
Yeah. Tommi and I, we stay pretty busy. The job keeps us busy.
Well, you're very influential on a lot of the young men today, and both of you. I know you have 5 children. What do you think right now for you both, as you work with youth and you work with the football league? What is most important to you when it comes to mental health? How do you support the athletes in that area?
So for myself, it has changed. So when I came in to the National Football League, and that was 1992, there was no such thing as mental health. It was. And now behavior health. It was, you deal with your own issues. There was really a stigma around sharing. And that's one of the things that we fight every day. And now it's just a different generation of athletes, frankly, a different generation of coaches and players that has embraced both the mental and physical aspect of behavior health. And it's, again, looking at the late 80s to early 90s, and how we care for the athletes has just changed. You have full-time roles, full-time positions at staffs at each club. That didn't exist when I first came into the league. In college, every student athlete has access to a clinician, a performance coach, and those two things integrated together, because I think we look at it as both the mental aspect as well as the performance aspect, and making sure those two are married together so that you can get the most out of the individual, or the individual could get the most out of him or herself.
Absolutely. Great stuff.
If I may just chime in and just speak from the perspective of a mom who's had the opportunity to be a part of youth sports for all of our children's lives, and just recognizing, for me, what is extremely important in this process is making sure that from a mental wellness perspective, that we're not focused on that the sport is defining who our children are, whether that's my children or the other children that have an opportunity to participate. It's extremely important that they understand this is something that you do, and that there's a focus of utilizing sports to help to build and to really instill in the young people, how you can utilize these skills to propel you forward and ultimately becoming who you will be in life. And so it's not about focusing on necessarily the sport itself, but how do we use the things that come along with being a part of a team, so we can use it to fortify your mental wellness and build up a resiliency within inside of you, leaning in on and who you are as a person.
I love that. And so how do you both, with your 5 kids and some in sports, so how do you do that? How do you manage to keep them grounded and balanced like that so that they think like that?
So Doc, great question. And we both handle it different. We both are.
Because she smiled really big. She's like,
and she's always my coach. So as I'm trying to be a dad and coach, she's telling me, no, well, you should say, well, no, that's what you should say. If that's how you feel, that's how you should say it. But we take it, we both have different ways on how we engage with each of our children. And as we've watched them mature and matriculate through life, we've seen how one, I can approach a different way. That being said, I can be a little firmer. I can lean in a little bit more. I can see how their mental state is, and what I just said, how that may have affected him or her physically. So we just have these different approaches on how we engage with the kids. And then sometimes she puts me in a child bucket. So, well, we're trying to assist the kids. Sometimes I feel like I'm the 6th child. So I've just learned to deal with it, Doc.
Been there, done that, Troy. Well, I tell you what, Dr. Tommi, we've got 2 doctors here, Dr. Nina and Dr. Tommi. And when I met Dr. Tommi earlier this year in here in Dallas, when you were down here, and I'm trying to remember exactly which event it was, but you were outstanding. And I was just blown away by the message that you shared and what you had to say to everybody on hand. And that's when I reached out to you and said, you've got to join Dr. Nina and I in our podcast, because this is exactly what we're talking about. So that said and done, if the 2 of you would tell us about your, Dr. Tommi, you go ahead and start, but tell us about this incredible, the Vincent Country thing that you have and how that started and what that's all about.
Yeah, so Vincent Country is our family lifestyle brand that over time, for myself personally, I recognize that there was this life that Troy and I curated for our family. And it allowed for us to flourish and to learn, to be stretched, to be challenged. And we fared pretty well. And when I say that, I mean, life presents its obstacles, but when you have the opportunity to transform obstacles into stepping stones, it allows for you to have the tools necessary for you to be successful in life. And so we decided to form Vincent Country so that we could be an option for other families to look to on ways that they can glean from how we were able to achieve success, because there's enough room for everybody to shine. And so we've just been continuing to move forward, continue to raise our children. Now we have 6 grandchildren, and it's not about looking at external examples for us, because we do recognize that every family has unique properties, and it's important for everybody to be able to identify what does it take to create their own country? What does it take for their families to find success where they are, and really customizing it so that you are able to thrive in life?
There's nothing else for me to add to that. Outside of, so when we were kind of working through where we were, our children, seeing our children mature, it was all about faith, family, and football. And as we mature and as each of us walk into our own gifting and purpose, it's still around faith, family, and food. There's 3,000 living Vincents. And Tommy's the general manager. She's the club owner. She's the head coach. She's also the position coach. So when Tommi formed and brought it all together, the matriarch is what we say, of Vincent Country, it was like, this works. And how can we be an example to other families, other couples, that, as Tom said, it's not about the material things. It's about what's important to you. What's important to your family? What makes you happy? How are you defining success? Not what society says is success.
You do a great job just modeling, to your children, how to live a life of faith and family and food, like you said, food, but how how influential that is, because some parents just say things, but they don't do what they are saying for their kids to do.
Yeah, they don't follow up, do they?
But you seem like you're really good role models, and now
Yeah.
you're teaching and helping other families become that way as well.
Well, we live by, I know what I can be by what I see. Mom cooks every day.
Wow.
She's in the kitchen. She's generating and curating conversations on a daily basis. So we really try to model to our children what they can be by what they see in our parents, healthy relationships, how we communicate with one another. We travel. We had little dogs just all over the place all the time. So we know what we can be by what we see, and we really try to model that in our lives daily.
Yeah, and I want to be clear about something, because while Troy and I are intentional about what it is that we're demonstrating to our children, that does not mean that they are doing what we're doing, or they're listening to what we're saying. We believe they hear us, and at the right time, when as they experience life and as they continue to mature in life, that those words will resonate at the right time. So I don't want to paint this picture that life is perfect, and there's a lot of hard work that has gone into establishing Vincent Country. A lot of hard work and consistent work. And so for us, while we tell our children many things, what we believe is more powerful than anything, like you said, Dr. Nina, is the ability to model it before them. So what we're doing and what we're showing them is real, and they know it's authentic, and that they have the option of choosing, is this what works for me? Or do I need to do some things differently in my life to ensure that I'm successful at being the best version of me?
Right.
Let me ask you this. With what you've just shared with us, with the world the way it is now, and we've spoken to other people along the way about just, a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old, you don't wake up in the morning and turn on the television and you hear about another shooting. And they've shot in schools, they've been in a Walmart, they've been wherever it might be. The point is, these kids, and they're not shooting somebody that they're that they don't like, or they're retaliating something, or it's just out of nowhere, and you just say to yourself, where is all this coming from? And it's so many of them are so young, they're teenagers. And I just wondered if there's a message that you might share with us all, with what you've already given to us in great wisdom thus far. Are there three things that you look upon as maybe the most important things that you as a parent, or you as in charge of Vincent Country, or as you move forward every day, that you say, we've got to make sure we do this, and we've got to make sure we cover this? Three things that come to mind. I don't know if they'd be the same three among the two of you. Jump on board. Tommy?
Well, I will start with this, Scott. One, great question. It all begins with love. It also begins with listening. And then the third is showing empathy towards everyone. That love, listening, and empathy. And we've lost let's say as a nation, we've lost seeing the best in people. We now judge people based off of where they're from, what we've seen, or what we may have heard, rather than let me just individually introduce myself to this individual and see the best in this individual until they tell us otherwise. So love, listening, and empathy.
Good.
Great answer. Tommy?
Yeah, and like Troy, I definitely lead with love, because love never hate nobody. Love has never hated anyone. And so leading with love is critical. And then the second piece is to be able to have understanding. And when I say understanding, recognizing that everyone is not you. And so it's critical to be able to move through life with understanding, knowing that my vantage point may be very different from yours, and that is okay. And then thirdly, I would say that it's critical for us to make sure, and this is what this conversation is about, is wellness, mental wellness, because you don't know what other people are experiencing in life. You don't know what their backstory is. You don't know what has molded and shaped the way that they move through life. And so if we recognize that it's critical for us to, just like we go to the gym, just like we feed, eat food, and we have all these other practices, that we make sure that we are intentional about mental wellness and making sure that we're able to encompass all of those things, so that as we're moving and we're, interacting with one another, that we're in a better position to be able to lead with that love that I first talked about.
And Scott, this literally goes back to being a great listener. Oftentimes, if we would pause, people tell us exactly what's going on in their lives and what's most important to them. But we have to be willing to pause and listen. Now, once someone speaks to us, okay, what are we actually taking? What did they just tell us about themselves or about their situations? And this is where we all have to continue to keep extending that love and that care. Because not only did I listen to you, I heard you. I heard exactly what you just said. And now we could act upon that appropriately. Maybe this individual needs to seek some help. Maybe this individual just needs some more love and care. So that listening and love is critical.
Yeah, having good conversation, not confrontation.
I think that listening piece, it's so easy to do, and to check in with your kids or your friend and your athlete and just say, how are you doing, and let them talk. And that in itself is so powerful and helpful for mental health. So I love that you both kind of are, that's important to you, and also love is the key to anything, I believe. So going back, Troy, to something you said earlier about, mental health in the NFL, it's more in the forefront. People are supporting it. But back then when you were in football, they didn't have that. So I'm curious, how did you manage your mental health? And maybe, Tommi, you were supporting him through that too. How did you manage your mental wellness during that period of your life?
The way I learned growing up was you keep it to myself, suppress it. I listened to music. I walked a lot until things either subsided or things changed. That was how church, obviously my faith, always leaning on my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But I listened to, just music, walking. I didn't learn to share. I didn't learn that, again, if I had a problem or an issue or wasn't feeling well, it was, hey, you see something, you say nothing. That's your problem. And then over time, as I matured and I realized that talking to individuals or having a place to express myself was important. Again, that was not the way growing up in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. That wasn't where society was. And the reason why we made this adjustment wasn't because we felt like it was the right thing to do. The young people told us we had to pivot. Right. So the athlete coming in, frankly, if you didn't have these services, if you didn't have support, if you're not talking about what is your mental and performance-based platforms are, then you are not going to be engaged with this athlete. There's an expectation that he has today coming from high school and college about support around his mental well-being as well as his physical.
And Tommi, how did you play a role when you met him, and he was used to bottling and dealing with his own emotions? So how did you help him in that area?
And let me jump in here, because just let me get this right. I think the two of you met in 1992. That's the year that you joined the NFL, was it not, Troy? 92, and then you were married 2 years later in 94. So Tommi's really been a part of this almost from the beginning as far as your NFL career, correct?
Please, Scott, don't, not this hour. Okay.
I'm sorry.
You just got my weekend. Okay. There you go.
No, so absolutely. And Troy and I both grew up in the same type of culture where mental wellness, going to therapy, having outlets for really being able to talk through and manage, to heal, all of those things. Those were not things that we were accustomed to. But what I did recognize in Troy It was problematic in our ability sometimes from a communications perspective. But what I did know is, okay, we have to do something differently for our sons, specifically for our sons. And so where I saw Troy not expressing himself, I was very deliberate with sitting down with my sons and saying, no, let's talk about it. Making sure that they understood there's no weakness in communicating the challenges that you're having in your life. And then as we continue to mature in our marriage, and I personally went through a bout of depression. And so I did extensive work in my own personal healing. I recognize that while this may have been something that was not normal to, a daily routine of maintaining our mental wellness, I knew that we had to make some changes and adjustments because for my own benefit, I could not continue to keep things in and suppress things that were really weighing heavy on my mind and causing me to be clogged from the ability to be able to prosper in my own personal life. And so that really brought it into our space where it became now something that we know is a practice that needs to be incorporated, not only in our lives, but making sure that our children and their children know that, no, this is a part of your maintenance. This is a part of something that when you implement this and you put this in place, it will put you in a position to win in life.
So how today, and this might be a different answer for both of you, how do you practice mental health for yourself every day to stay in this space that you're at right now, this healthy space?
You can start.
Okay. So for myself personally, I continue to make sure that I have that outlet that I can utilize if I need to have therapy. I also have relationships with other women specifically that are able to speak to my life. These are people that live very similar lives in respect to having husbands, having children, have high demanding positions, who have a lot of output in how they're producing and doing work in life. So that way, when I'm having conversations with them, we're able to hold each other accountable in how we're making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. In addition, I have my mantra for my own personal self this year is be good to you. And so I really am intentional about doing things that I would normally do for other people. I would get up in the morning and I would prepare breakfast for my family. You know what? And I wouldn't do that for myself. And so now I am getting up in the morning, taking the time to, get in my exercise, to sit down and eat and enjoy my breakfast without my phone, without the distractions, and making sure that I am the number one priority in my day. I'm not checking my emails and letting someone else dictate the priorities. I start with me first.
Good for you. That's great.
For sure. All right.
What
Your
about
turn,
you?
Troy. Go for it.
So for me, it is my mantra has been probably over the last, just say, year and a half. Self-care is not selfish. And taking care of myself in ways of walking, exercising. And I have a group of, I call confidants, that I can confide to about things that growing up or halfway through my life, my adult life, I would never talk about, but knowing I need to talk about and have someone listen and give me feedback. These are men that are married. These are men that I could trust, because maybe that's part of me not sharing was trust, a lack of trust in who would judge me based off of what I just shared with them. So that self-care is not selfish, taking care of myself. Again, I have my time of meditation where it's just me. And time to say, well, that's not different because I'm a loner, as most would say. But those things are important to me. And really understanding that self-care is not selfish, confining into my confidants on all of the issues so that they can share with me, nope, hey, you got to pivot. Or no, hey, Troy, hey, T, you got to change that. You need to go back and either apologize or whatever it needs to be done. So those are the kind of things that I've done differently from what I used to be to where I'm at today.
I bet it feels really good. These are great practices, just that to be intentional about your time, your space, to practice that self-care, to have a group of people that you trust, that you feel safe with, that you can talk to. It's great to have those things. It's great that you have them. Yeah.
No question about that. I tell you what, it's really fun to listen to the two of you. Jad, I wish, I tell you what, Dr. Nina, we ought to go up and check out that Vincent country, huh?
Oh,
Whereabouts
yeah.
is that located?
Tell me where it's located.
So Vincent Country is wherever we are. And I think that that's the power of every family and and when you take ownership of your life and you curate the world that you will thrive in, that becomes your country. And so Vincent Country is wherever we are. We are able to make home. We are able to create a space that's thriving wherever we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you think about the players today, and you mentioned, you're supporting their mental health and mental wellness, and you are an advocate in the NFL. You hear about it a lot, but there's still some athletes, or quite a few still, the men especially, that it's hard to speak up. It's hard to talk. What advice do you have to parents that are listening to help their athletes start talking more and sharing what's their struggle?
Doc, that's good. And we get it all the time. And this is really, we always feel like there's a time and a place and a moment for each athlete to come out of that shell. And they're guarding something that's most vulnerable to them is oftentimes the reason why they don't share. But what we try to remind them is there's a support system that's here for you when you are ready. There are people in place. And our model's been, Doc, it's been a peer-to-peer model, which we have found, which we've learned from our military partners, that is the best model to peer-to-peer. So that athlete being able to engage with someone to say, I was there 5 years ago. I was there as a rookie. I was there transitioning to another club. I was there through a separation. I was there through a loss of a child or loss of a loved one. And that peer-to-peer model allows us to engage with one another until we feel confident enough. We've built that callous enough to say, I'm okay. Here's where I can get resources. Here's where my resources are. Here's who I can share this with, and building that community of care around the athlete. So when that athlete is ready to share or need support, they know where to go.
Yeah, that's good. I have never heard of the peer-to-peer, so I think that's a great way of approaching
it. Yeah, me too. I like that. Yeah. Well, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Any closing thoughts, Dr. Nina? What do you think?
Actually, there's one of the things I had heard you speak about before, Troy. You said in an interview, you said our stories are for other people, and I know you both have your own stories. I guess, what do you want to share about your story that you feel like that can be helpful today to people listening?
Well, I would share just life in general. And I mean that when I've shared that before, like my trials and tribulations are not for me, but for someone else, because we've all been gifted the ability to get through this tribulation or this downtime, or the Lord wouldn't allow it to happen. So we have to have the faith that we're going to get through it, but then be able to share so that maybe someone can put that experience, I call it, in their toolbox, because life's about a toolbox, and developing and putting all these different life lessons in this toolbox, so that when you get to the proper site, when you get to the field, based off of what is happening, you can now go to your toolbox and pull out the proper tool for this moment. So just my life journey, my life experiences, my experience in sports, whether it was positive, negative, the challenges, the things that I've had success with, being able to share those things so that individuals could develop their toolbox so that they can be successful. Okay, I get to this roadblock or this crossroad. I remember hearing this. Maybe this applies. Maybe I can use this tool, or I can apply this right now in life.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Dr. Tommi, we don't want to leave without having you share with us a closing comment. What might come to mind with just the subject matter that you've shared with all of us here today? It's just been above and beyond. We can't thank you enough. Anything, any closing thoughts you'd like to share with us, or anything you might tell to a mom out there? Hey, this is what we need to do so we don't see some of these kiddos that don't have or come from a single parent family. They need to know they're just as important as anybody else out there. They just have to stay on the straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm. So I always talk about how you build strong communities by building one person at a time, because it's the people that make up the community. And so when you start with self, and I'll speak from the perspective of a mom, because that's who you asked me to speak to. When you start with yourself, you have the ability to present the best version of you. And so I often talk with my husband and my children about, if the equation does not include me, then the math will not math. Because if we're in this together, if we are responsible to, create this life together and someone is missing, then it's not whole. And so really taking the time to invest in you. What is required? What do I need to pour into me to ensure that not only do I have what I need, but I'm also in a position to be able to pour out to others to help continue the moving forward of prosperity for the entire family. Because I cannot give you what I don't have. And so it has to start with you first.
Mm-hmm.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer. Well, I tell you what, we're out of time, unfortunately, but Dr. Tommi and Troy, just above and beyond, from the love that you shared with us to the empathy to everything else you've shared with us, above and beyond. We can't thank you enough for all you continue to do, not only in the Vincent community, but all across the country, wherever it might be. Really, it's great to see two people like you in this crazy world we're all a part of right now, sharing the message that you've shared with us all this morning. Would you not agree, Dr. Nina?
I love it. And I love that you both really take care of yourselves first, that you make sure that your mental health is good so that you can do the work that you've been called to do. And so it's great to meet you virtually. And thank you just for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for allowing us to share. Thank you for giving us a platform to share our experiences, what we've learned as we continue to learn. But again, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nina, and thank you, Scott. We appreciate it.
No, and thanks for all you both continue to do. Continue on. You're making a difference, and it doesn't get any better than that. I've often said, live your life as a go-getter, but share your life as a go-giver. And that's what the two of you are doing every single day. So we salute you and say thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Good stuff.
Wonderful.
So until next time, folks, that's it for this edition of Conversations of Connection. We're talking about mental wellness and sports and life. Till next time, I'm Scott Murray.
And I'm Dr. Nina Rios-Doria. Take care.
Stay safe and well. So long.